record. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello. This is Corey Thompson from Dice Tower Dish and Above Board TV.
And this is the Podfather of Gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 300 and lucky 13. We're recording it on March 28th, 2024. Board Games Insider, proud to be powered by Board Game Geek. So, Corey, so I had your name and his name because I'm going to say Ignacy promised that he would be here this week. However,
And I promised I would be here 4 or 5 hours ago.
it was what a crazy day it has been for me.
It has been an
trying to
insane
wrangle
day.
you jerks for this show. So Ignacy this morning says he had an emergency. It was a company, but he had to go and have a meeting, had to get this thing done. So was not available, even though he promised. He said he's going to be available a lot during April. We'll see what happens. He said every week during April. We'll see what happens. And then I'm trying to get Corey this morning. And what happens? No response. I literally try him on 3 different ways of getting to him. I start telling people, like, I think something might be wrong with Corey. Corey never blows me off. How is this possible? I told Paul, he goes, oh my God, I hope he's okay. And then finally he wakes up.
Oh no, I just overslept. And it leads into the stuff that I've been doing.
Okay, and what have you been doing to tell about the stuff?
Right now, there is a board game design and developer crew having a retreat at the house. There's about 20 designers and developers, mostly organized by Carla Kopp from Weird Giraffe and John Brieger from Brieger Creative Group. So there is a ton of socializing and great food, but also play testing and prototyping. They are running the printer and running the cutters constantly. It's a really cool group just to see all this going on.
Very
But
nice.
the bottom line is I was up till 3 a.m. last night, which is not usual for me. And even though I had every intention of getting up early for recording, I didn't set my alarm correctly.
And there might have been
there was food, there was frivolity,
there was wine, at least I know that.
So, but I am having an absolutely amazing time. So this group of designers has showed up all week. So right now we are recording on Thursday. So they showed up on Monday and they're staying until next Monday. Again, about 20.
They're staying 8 days with you?
A week, Sunday, Monday, they're going to be.
You've never invited me to stay that long.
I have given you open invite to stay as long as you want. But we've got all sorts of people in the local area dropping by to say hello.
Nice.
So Aldo's going to drop by, which is going to be really fun. But I've gotten to play a whole bunch of prototypes that I'm really excited about, and I got the okay to talk about some of them. Nice. So one of my favorites is it's being called Alibi, and it's coming from All Play. And this is, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's a cooperative team code names. There are words in the middle of the table put on pictures of suspects, like an alibi suspect lineup. And every player is given 2 words on this group in the middle of the table that they need to give a single clue for. So again, like code names, a single clue that points to 2 words in the middle of the table. But every person at the table has a different 2 words in the middle that they need to target. There is 1 more word in the middle than all the players have. We need to figure out which word is not represented by all of these people playing the game. So you need to figure out everybody's pair of words, what they're doing with all of these different clues, and guess at the alibi, the one left out word card in the middle of the table. So ridiculously fun. It just worked. Great. This was a Japanese game that they picked up from Tokyo Game Fair. And nice. Again, being prototyped for All Play. The other one is also an All Play design. If anybody remembers the old trick-taking game, because I know you like trick-taking.
I do.
Custom Heroes from John D. Clare. which was a trick-taking game with clear plastic overlays. So as the game is played, you are modifying and changing the cards in the deck. And some of these go back into the deck and can be dealt out to other players later if you modified them and made it better. And some of them you can actually put ownership on. So after the cards are laid out, you can say, oh, if anybody owns the card that I tagged as mine, you have to give it to me now. The old game was Custom Heroes done by AEG, had a anime kind of theming to it, and you did these overlays and played a trick-taking game. The new one, as yet untitled, but it's more about the trick-taking, a little less about the theming, and I was really excited about it. It was really cool. I love John Clare's designs, and trick-taking was right up my alley. So those were two of the really shining stars that I got to play prototypes of that I can talk about. And then next week I'm heading out to New York. So starting in Rochester, April 4th, and Above Board's going to be filming around the Strong Museum of Play and Rochester and the eclipse that's going over Rochester.
Yeah.
And then April 11th, we'll be moving into Niagara Falls for Gathering of Friends. So I've got an exciting 3 weeks in New York, that upstate New York, like
Not
upstate.
yeah, really. When you say upstate, it's almost Canada, where we're all going
It's
to be.
true, right on the border.
Um, are the rest of the above board people coming to the gathering? Were they invited, or are they going to be heading out after the Rochester Strong Play?
Honestly, no, they weren't invited, but I've been trying to arrange with the people um, at Gathering to see if like Travis can just kind of visit a day.
I know a
No,
guy. I
I
might know.
know.
I might know a guy. I can help you out if you think
I
if
think
you.
you owe me a favor.
I
Like at
don't think I
some
owe
point,
you.
at some time, I will ask you a favor. You will do this for me.
Well, talk after this if you really want. Yeah, I mean, it would be if Travis. Yeah, let's talk. Let's talk. Let's see if we can make it happen because I kind of like that guy Travis. He's a nice guy. Like Travis Oates. He's okay.
He's
All right.
pretty cool.
Over here at the Podfather of Gaming, those who are watching me might be able to see, I'm not in my office and I'm not in a hotel room. I'm in New Jersey on a family oriented trip. Had to come to New Jersey for about 5 days. So I'm here now. This is Mom's house. And I'm heading out
It's
tomorrow.
a gorgeous place, much nicer than my moving blanket backdrop for
you
sound
you
muffling.
you do have a pretty
I'm
interesting
in a
background
freaking
there.
cave. It
You
echoes
look
like crazy if I
it
don't put blankets up.
there you go. Um And then, as Corey said, I'll be home a week, and I have a whole bunch of things I got to get done. But then I'll be heading out to Buffalo, Niagara. The Gathering of Friends happens in Niagara Falls, New York. Not the most scenic place in the world, though. That the actual falls, both in the New York and Canadian side, is amazing. Niagara Falls, New York. Well, we're there to game and have a great time, and we really, really do. And for those, just a really quick thing for those who don't know what the Gathering of Friends, this is this invitation only event that Alan Moon, designer of Ticket to Ride and other great games, um, put together over 30 years ago. This is now its 34th year, I believe, and it's been
Yeah,
going on. Alan actually doesn't run it anymore. He handed it over to two guys, Bobby West and Craig Massey, lovely people. And we just have a great time. Everyone almost knows everybody of like the 500 people there, and it is an amazing time to
fantastic
spend.
crowd of
And
industry designer, publisher.
so many industry people are there, which is great, of course. And you get to see the Europeans come and stuff like that too, and people from all across the country. So it's an amazing time. And that's all I'm going to talk about, except that thank you very much for throwing something into my notes here, Corey. So Corey played a Play to Z note, which is normally I try to talk a little bit about Play to Z at this point. We're
Hey,
both
I'm looking out for you, man.
looking out for me and for the company. So Zev Schlosinger, who is the president and COO of the company, has an interview was done for Board Game Wire, our friends over at Board Game Wire. So if you want to check that out, please go there, boardgamewire.com, and you can see what Zev has to say about the new company and
Yeah.
what's going on. So shout out to Zev, shout out to Play to Z, and shout out to Board Game Wire right there. In the
Real
meantime,
quick,
yeah,
I literally just got the note this minute. The game I was talking about, Alibi, that I'll play is prototyping, that I'm impressed with the cooperative code names team version. The designer is Yusuke Sato, big Japanese designer. So I just wanted to give credit where credit is due.
excellent.
Um, yep, he did Don't Mess with Cthulhu, which is one of great social deduction, and he did Couture for All Play.
Excellent social deduction. In the meantime, the event deck. All right, so we do have quite a bit of news here. Hopefully, we'll be able to get through it because a lot of it's very topical. The first one coming off of ICV2 is one of the things that they did at Gamma to talk about, well, what's the state of hobby gaming going on? And the one important takeaway that we're going to talk about was that hobby game sales eked out a nominal 1% increase in 2023 against the tough comparison to a third great year of COVID-fueled sales in 2022. Increases in collectible games, miniature sales, offset declines in board, card, and RPG sales. We define hobby games as those games produced for gamer market, generally, though not always, sold primarily in the hobby game channel and card specialty stores. So in general, what they're saying here is that there was a 1% increase, which is very, very small, basically a flat year over year, which is not too bad because there's been so many bad trends, really. But they also come up with a number that they believe the North American market is total sales for hobby board games, and it came out at almost $3 billion US, 2.885 billion US dollars.
Which is
Not bad.
great. And there's been all these indications that maybe it was dropping, maybe this wasn't a great year. So this is good news that it's not dropping. I would call this flat, but there is a little bit of an increase.
Yeah, I mean, it generally we're talking about a flat year, and that's the way this has got to look. Some companies had very tough years, and some
Yeah.
companies did well. I mean, and that's going to be a company by company thing, what their product lines look like, of course. So, um, another interesting thing is that they're citing that 2024 was the 15th consecutive year of growth in the hobby games channel. I mean, even though only a percent, it still has
Still
grown
growth.
every
Still growth.
year, right? So that's obviously a very good thing.
Fantastic news.
Yeah. So a couple of things here from Embracer Group, right? The parent company
Oh
of
yeah.
Asmodee. Interesting, and let's talk about them. These three articles, two of them not good at all for Embracer. So without reading anything, because I'm getting this directly from their press releases, since they're a publicly held company, they
Right.
report these things very publicly, and I subscribe every time they put out a press release. So they announced this week that they're selling Gearbox Entertainment, which is
This
again
is a huge one. Gearbox Entertainment is the maker of the Borderlands series of video games, which is still a viable IP for video games. But more importantly, there is a movie that's just been announced that's coming out soon. That is the Borderlands movie. Kevin Hart, all sorts of big stars in there. A really glitzy, pretty CGI'd up trailer.
very, very
Um,
cool. They're selling the company for $460 million, which they had bought for over $330 million, which, of course, therefore sounds like they made money. However, there were all kinds of riders in there, and we don't know if those riders got executed. The sale of the purchase of Gearbox could have cost them as much as $1.3 million with all of those earnouts. We don't know that. So at best, it sounds like they probably broke even. They could have lost some money on this.
sure.
And this comes on the heels of, we just reported over the last few weeks that they sold Saber Interactive, which was a Russia-based company, again, a digital company, e-gaming, and they sold them for $247 million. And I did a little more research.
Yeah.
They had purchased them for over $520 million in 2020. So a substantial loss on that.
And Saber does do AAA video games. Some of their big ones that they had were Space Marine 2, Jurassic Park Survival, the video game version of Quiet Place. They have a huge library of games under their belt.
Right. So both of these companies, I mean, look at these numbers. These numbers are crazy. 460 million, 200. I mean, they're just big, big numbers. So these are big companies that they owned and have sold. Why did they sell them? Well, first of all, they sold Saber allegedly because they were divesting from Russia. Yeah, okay. They should have done it 2 years ago, but fine. But really, why they're selling these companies is because they are in big trouble. Embracer, the parent company of Asmodee, is in very big trouble. They have huge, huge cash flow problems right now because, again, 2 years ago, I think it was at this point, was last
1
year?
to 2 years ago,
Yeah, they
the
had
Saudi
lost,
tech group.
right, the Saudi group pulled out. They were not, they thought they were going to get a $2 billion inflow to continue their work.
And they planned on having the inflow, and then it vaporized.
It vaporized.
And this
Not
is
good.
the Saudi government has a tech company called Savvy, Savvy, and that company was going to invest significantly into Embracer.
And they did not, which is was really bad for them. So bad news really on the Embracer side, but they now have a lot of cash, or they will as these things settle. Now on the good news side, and Corey found this on Board Game Wire just today. Did it just hit today? Because
Yeah.
I did.
It's
Because I had
basically a
looked.
response press release to all the bad that we're talking about.
Sure, why don't you take yeah, because they actually quote some of this stuff in there. Why don't you take over?
So Embracer Group commits to Asmodee's future as restructuring program ends. So basically, it's a press release that Embracer is saying, yeah, we know we've sold off lots of stuff. It looks bad, but man, we love Asmodee. So it's a big old press release saying that they're committed. They're not getting rid of Asmodee. They're supporting Asmodee. Asmodee is not something they're worried about.
Yeah, they really they used Asmodee as the poster child for the good things that are happening.
Their favorite child.
Is their favorite child. But they made statements in this thing that Asmodee's head count had only fallen by about 82 people over the last year to about 2,500, while the total number of people laid off at Embracer was like 1,400 people. So they're putting them up as these guys are the backbone of this company and are making plenty of money. We got to get rid of some of these other guys to pay down our debt, which is currently sitting at around $1.4 billion. So big finance, big numbers here.
This is also the reason that Asmodee, which traditionally was an acquiring company and was absorbing lots of other game companies, this is why that has kind of stopped. Is the money flow to acquire big companies dried up.
Yeah, and I mean, this very specifically, they told Asmodee, and I have some inside information on that. They said no more buying. We have to, even companies they were literally walking down the road with and had contracts with trying to get signatures. They said, yeah, we can't do the deal right now. We're gonna have to pull out.
Part of that, we've actually got office dog representatives at the house
now. Could you mention who? Bree is there? Oh, that's great. Love Bree. She's awesome. So that was a big thing there for them. But with any luck, some of this will turn that around, and Asmodee can continue doing some other great things. So here's something that I thought was extremely interesting.
Yeah.
You know, we've had all of this talk, of course, about AI art or AI images, as some people want to call it. Some people don't want to call it art. Okay, I get it. The AI being used in gaming in general, right? But Hasbro came out and was not talking about artwork or images. They came out and said they're experimenting with AI in D&D and Magic the Gathering. And specifically what was going on here, this was a piece on ICV2 by Jeffrey Dome Sanchez, one of their writers, and he gave a half opinion piece, a half, fact. The CEO, who's Chris Cox, who comes from the gaming side, so the hobby gaming side. So he's, he's
Right.
one of us, this guy. He was doing an interview for Venture Beat, which is a Wall Street type website that they talk about, how companies are doing, and they get big names to talk to them. And they talked about the fact that what they talked to him about, well, how are they using AI? And so we'll get into how they're going to do it in a second, but the author of this column, his thesis here was that this entire column, this entire interview was for Wall Street. It wasn't for gamers, because AI is so big, period. No matter how you're talking about it, no matter how you're talking about it, it is so big that everybody on Wall Street wants to hear this, because they then say, oh, they're smart enough to use some AI in some of their things. Now, here is what Hasbro is now thinking about doing in very, very, very general terms with D&D and Magic the Gathering. They're going to be experimenting with figuring out ways that, once you load all of this incredible amount of data into an AI, right? You have all of these Magic cards from 40 years of stuff. You have all of these adventure modules and content of 50 years of D&D. You can then have the AI work. Let's use D&D. I think this is a great thing, at least for somebody like me who can't be a game master. I can't. I'm not good at this kind of stuff. I could use an AI to say, hey, you know what? I need 3 taverns. I need a this. I need that. I need a keep here. And they can create worlds for you to help you run a campaign. I mean, that's one use. And that's just, they didn't mention this. But if you think about it, if you can load all this data and I can ask, give me some great encounters that I can have for a party that has these characters in it. That will help me as a dumb DM come up with ideas. I don't have to use exactly what the AI tells me, but it'll give me ideas. And I think that's going to be very interesting. And similar things with Magic the Gathering. Maybe it will help create combinations of cards for them. I don't know. I mean, that one is a little harder because I'm not really a player of Magic, not for many, many, many years. So Corey,
I
I
like
think,
I
yeah, what do
like
you,
the idea of using the AI for game iteration, game design ideas. But
mm-hmm.
what I also like is this implication, this hinting they're giving that maybe they use AI as an opponent. So you can have an AI opponent or an AI game master or an AI NPC. One of the more concrete ones that Hasbro announced in the past is a Pictionary game where you draw pictures and the AI guesses what you've drawn.
Yes, they've
Which,
actually done that one already, right? That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
I like those. And if I can also just shout out the original article in Venture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Venture
Uh,
Beat.
Venture Beat, my apologies,
Mm-hmm.
is a fantastic article. Covers so much of what's going on inside Hasbro. And uh, Tanya Thompson, friend of the channel, works for Hasbro and has actually pointed out several parts of this Venture article as like this is such exciting stuff going on and things that they've been wanting to talk about for a while. And this is kind of the first outing of a lot of the changes going on at Hasbro.
Right. So
So it's just a fantastic article.
I think the takeaway here for people listening maybe is that this is a potential use of AI in gaming in a good way, maybe, right? Because no one is getting hurt. I mean, somebody might say, well, DMs are getting hurt because they're not creating. Well, I mean, again, if I'm a good DM, I don't need to do that. I'm a bad DM. I'm a terrible DM. I don't DM because I can't keep all of this stuff straight. I could never DM D&D. It would be a miserable experience for all of you. But if I could tap into a little bit of this and dabble, and all of a sudden it would inspire me. So potentially an interesting way of using it for D&D. For Magic the Gathering, maybe like you said, maybe it's AI opponents who actually can create decks and can play against you in an intelligent way, not like a dumb way where just cards just come out. So I like it. I mean, this is at least
Yeah.
potentially something good. So we'll see. So Corey, the next one is great, and you talk about Tanya, because I think Tanya's involved with this. Tanya Thompson over at Hasbro.
Oh yeah, of course.
Why don't you take this one?
So again, Board Game Wire. They're doing such a fantastic
Yes,
job
they
of
are.
doing up-to-the-minute news articles here. I can't give them enough credit. Uh, there's an article, Hasbro invests in family card game design from the Women Innovators of Play winner, Ellie Dix. So this is huge. The toy and game giant Hasbro is developing a board game with Ellie Dix, who's one of the 3 winners of the company's inaugural Women Innovators of Play Challenge. So Dick's British board game designer is the owner of family board game publisher Dark Imp, and they looked at her as yet unrevealed design, which won the contest in November, alongside a creation from London-based board and card game enthusiast Sandra Harewood, and co-designed from Mandy Goddard and her 6-year-old Maggie. So I just love that Hasbro is trying to make these changes, is doing invitationals, contests where they look at designs from the public, from traditionally underrepresented groups, and both working with and mentoring the winners of these contests and trying to make viable products from it. So Gamma has been doing something similar with their Horizons project, where they're trying to take people from different groups and work with their designs and mentor and build them up for publication. But having a name as big as Hasbro be involved in something like this, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, really, really cool. I'm really happy that they're making these kinds of strides. And Corey, you found also that
It's a little tangential,
I
but I
would say
think
this
it's
is
important.
extremely tangential, but important to bring this up. So go ahead, tell us about this one.
So this goes with the big battle that's going on out there between the crowdfunding companies. So we know that Kickstarter was the first really well-recognized crowdfunding company. I know I'm ignoring Indiegogo, but Kickstarter in
They don't
board
count
game
anymore.
world was one of the first big ones, and they still are the big player on the block. And then we have GameFound, which has been increasing. They really have a niche marketing for crowdfunding. If you've got a giant campaign game with tons of minis, GameFound tends to do well. And we've got the little guy on the block. We've got BackerKit, who has come in recently. They were from the marketing side, from the pledge fulfillment side, and now they're doing their own crowdfunding. So the story is Brandon Sanderson had famously run a Kickstarter campaign last year, might be a little longer ago
Yep.
than last year, and it broke all the records. It destroyed Kickstarter. It's the #1 crowdfunding project. I believe it made in the order of 40 million, just a ridiculous amount. Right now, the second crowdfunding campaign from Brandon Sanderson has just finished up, and it was on BackerKit. It's on the #3 player. So I think this is going to raise legitimacy of BackerKit, and it might turn into a more viable crowdfunding platform for board games. The current Brandon Sanderson campaign raised nearly 22 million, which for BackerKit, of course, it broke the records for BackerKit because that's a ridiculous number. I think the previous record was like 4 million. 21.63 million. So hopefully this is going to create some more competition within the crowdfunding space, and that's only good for us. So that's it's going to be a lot of different places to try to get our exciting games that won't go through traditional retail channels.
Now this is BackerKit was almost the third one, I guess, right? Of the now majors, like GameFound is really doing good. So it's good to see that.
It is a viable third, but it's a far
Yeah.
third.
Yeah, but it's really good to see that this happened. I mean, Sanderson is just so big right now. I mean, he's, you know, whatever he did on that Kickstarter, it was 40 million, I think, or something crazy like that. So he did 21 here on backer.
Yeah.
Whatever the numbers are, they're immense. But it does show that there are people watching this as well. So yeah, thanks for bringing this up. It's very tangential, but it's actually tangential in a good way. Last piece of news is simply that we have another Gamma
It was
resignation.
41 million. 41 million. Brandon
40.
Sanderson.
There you go.
185,000 backers.
I was pretty close.
You were.
So the last thing, it would have been good for Ignacy to be here because he loves Gamma so much, as we all know. But we just want to mention that there was another Gamma board resignation, and that was Grace Collins has resigned from the Gamma board. She was Snowbright Studios CEO. CEO, served as creative director, vice president, interim president. So, Grace, good luck in your future endeavors. So,
they're an absolutely tremendous person. Did a lot of great things for the industry, but now has resigned.
Yep. And then Gamma will then replace at their meeting that comes up this week, I think.
The election is going on right now
Oh, that's right. I actually
replace the seat.
Somebody has actually reached out to me and said, "Do you know these people?" And I was like, "Yes, yeah, oh yes, these people." Some of these, I was giving people ideas of like,
Tomorrow's the last day to vote.
Go vote, Corey. I'm actually.
I know. I'm in Gamma. I know.
You should be voting. Let's get over to strategy and tactics.
Cool.
All right. So Lucas Connors, who's at Revolution Tech. He asks us, from the perspective of publishers, what are significant barriers to growth that consumers may not have visibility into? What aspects of the publishing business are a lot more difficult than it feels like they should be?
Wow.
All right, that's a very big question. In general, the barrier, and we've talked about this, and I mean, this might be something that we can bring up when Ignacy's back on as well, because right now, I mean, the biggest barrier to growth is the fact that there's just so many publishers out there, right? The barrier to getting in just like fell through the floor once we had crowdfunding. When I started Stronghold, that didn't exist. You had to fund it with your own money. So since you're using other people's money for everything, the barrier for entry is easy. The barrier for growth is getting your products known. No matter how good your game is, if you don't have people looking at it, you're in trouble. So that's the biggest barrier.
I think it's also a financial side. There's tight margins, and all of these profit margins are divided up among a million different players. If you're making a board game, you need to pay for the components, you need to pay royalties, you need to pay for distribution, you need to pay for the retail cost, you need to pay for localization or languages or all these things. And they all chop away at what you're going to take home. And with the intense competition in the board game market, it's really hard to make money off of a game, even a super popular one. And we're such a fickle audience, with the cult of the new. Games will flash and die.
Yeah, so, and that is obviously a huge issue that, I mean, well, again, but it all comes back to the fact that you play it, you love it, but oh, look at that bright shiny thing over there, and you want to grab that next thing, and you want to go, and we want to, what are you coming out with? What are you doing next? Instead of
I'm as guilty of it as the next person.
Oh, you're more guilty than every person. I'm going to put it
Thank you. Thank you. I love you too, man.
Yeah. Lucas continues with, well, what software should a new board game publisher be proficient in? Like spreadsheets or graphic design tools?
Excel.
What tools would you recommend to a growing publisher? Publishing is, at some level that when you're starting a business is similar to many others. You need hard skills in running spreadsheets, right? I mean, that's just the biggest thing because you can do so much. Spreadsheets are just, when they created the spreadsheet, the personal computer was born as a tool of efficiency and a tool of usefulness. Before that, it was a toy. So yes, all of the Microsoft products are very important. He mentions for like graphic design. Well, I mean, if people
that's a specialty thing.
Yeah, people who can do that If like there are people who entered the industry that could do illustrations, and they could do that, but that literally is a special talent, and that's one of those things that you have to go out and hire. Not, I mean, not bring on board permanently, but normally you go out and you get people to do that work for you as on an as needed basis. So you
Now,
don't need that
yeah,
necessarily in-house.
you hear me typing furiously over here because I do want to point out that Christian Peterson, who's the founding the person who founded Fantasy Flight Games and
Yep.
is an enormous player in the market,
Hmm.
he's actually created a software company that makes tracking and maintenance software for board game publishers. And my brain is killing me that I don't remember the name of his company, which makes me feel very, very guilty. It has
The
awe in the title,
all
AWE,
base.
and All Base. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank
I
you.
was about to say A base.
Any
All base is
that
the
yeah.
company name, I believe, and it's a software name. But that software, which obviously
It's
you can,
management for projects, keeping all
yes,
of the different aspects of a project going.
it's even more specific or on the outskirts. It's management of your suppliers, your
Okay.
people who do work for you. So you really need to have a company of a certain size to make it make sense. I've taken the demo.
Okay,
Chris
cool.
Peterson gave me the demo personally, and I kind of pointed him to a bunch of companies that
Well, I thought
could
you could
possibly use
manage
it.
your artists and manage your subcontractors on there as well. And even
That's
small publishers will have artists they're subcontracting and things like that. But
right, but
yes, it might be outside a price point for a small publisher.
they do have, as most companies do, have a free version of the software that you can have, and then but as you know, as you want to grow or add more things to it, you have to then you pay a per seat model. You know, that's the kind of way that software is normally sold like this. Essentially, it manages your consultants. You manages
There you go.
your artists, your all of your illustrators, your graphic designers, your designers, like who, like maybe you contract even to do some development with people, different people. So you can say this person is good at doing these things, this person's good at doing these things, this person's, and you
Yeah,
keep it all together. This is the rate that we pay them normally, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're tracking normally those 1099s, as we like to say, or the people
yeah,
outside the organization that you need to go to do projects, not project management software, but the people to bring in on your projects. So it's good for companies that run lots of projects and have lots of people that they need to contract with to bring in to do work.
there
So
you
give a
go.
shout out to Chris Peterson and Aubase as that tool. It is very cool. Um, so thanks that Lucas. That's a was a tough one to answer, but thank you for that. Tom T from the United Kingdom. He says, and he's at Tay Taints, Taynt's. I'm not sure where he's going.
Taints.
Taints. Oh, Taints at Taints. You talked in your latest episode. This is 8, 9 months ago, about going to UKG and some of the differences between European and American conventions. What one thing do you think European conventions could be improved on based on your experience with American conventions? Vice versa, what one thing do you think American conventions should adopt from European conventions? So, Corey,
Hmm.
we both have experience in extensively at Essen. That's the
Yeah,
one that we both go to. I went to the UKGE last year. You're going this year, is that right?
I'm trying to.
You're
Yeah,
trying to go. Have you been to anything else in Europe before we actually try to answer this question?
little local cons, but not any of the
Okay.
big.
So my and I don't know if it's something to improve on or not improve on, but I know one of the biggest things I noticed as a difference between the two, UKGE and pick major uh, American convention, was that
Yeah,
the booths were very austere is the wrong word, but they were very plain. They didn't have any. You didn't see uh, a big wheeled truck in the middle of the exhibit hall.
or two-story booths,
You didn't
or
see two-story booths. You
little
didn't
film
see
screening areas,
you
and
didn't see
private
massive
rooms.
televisions and AV going. They were run they looked like, this is a good way of putting it, they looked like an American convention for that was being done at a major regional convention. Like what I'm anticipating Kubla Khan will look like,
Yeah.
or I'm trying to think of some of the other biggest of
Geekway,
those.
SaltCon, RageCon,
Yeah, BGG Con.
Strategicon, BGG Con, Dice
Yep.
Tower Con.
It looked more like those cons. I mean, a little bit bigger, like in things they were doing, of course, but it didn't have the flash and pizzazz. Is that a bad thing? Maybe that's a better thing. But it certainly didn't say like, "Oh, we got to go see that booth. Look how cool that booth is." You know, that kind of thing did not exist.
Hmm.
And I won't go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that oftentimes it boils down to a comparison of Essen versus Gen Con. And it seemed like the booth structure at the European cons was more piecemeal. It was, you want a booth? Okay, it's this charge. Oh, do you want your booth to have walls? Oh, it's this much more. Do you want your booth to have electricity? It's this much more. You want your booth to have internet? It's this much more. There was a lot of piecemeal options on booth structure, which led to kind of an austere look.
Right.
But I think the variability between conventions is much greater than the variability between a European convention and an American convention. So any two, regardless of where they are, have just different feel and character to them.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of makes it so that you can, pick and choose like what your style is, right? I mean, if you don't want that huge feel, you stay away from certain conventions. If you want, hey, more space for me to go game, you go to certain ones
Yeah.
over other ones. Cool. So thank you, Tony T. I think at this point we're going long because of all
Well,
that
I just want
news.
to send just a real quick. We had a nice little fan letter
Oh, that's
from
nice.
a play group over in Rochester, and I just
Oh, that's
wanted to
nice.
say hey to Zombie Ed Omaccioli, who holds a play group in that area. I'm gonna try to crash it, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, that's cool. That's right. They invited you to come when you were in Rochester because you mentioned it here.
Yep, yep,
Very,
yep.
very, very cool. All right, let's get over to play testing. So, Corey, last week we actually picked a question, right, from one of our very, very big listeners,
Yeah,
Lal Margu. He's a awesome guy now that I know him because he showed me his picture when we had met a couple of times. And his question was, do you read any board game magazines? If so, which ones? Do you do so in physical or digital format? And then he
yeah,
pointed out some of the ones that he read and some of the bigger ones like Spielbox and Spiel Doch, which are both German, Plato magazine, which is in French, and Senate, which is in English. And I
yep.
pointed out that there's this
And
big amount
Tabletop
of
Magazine, the American one.
yes, and there's this big amount of magazines that are actually linked on Board Game Geek that I never knew about, so I kind of put it there too. So Corey, did you happen to see any trends here? I know you like to find trends in all
And
these things.
oh, I love it. And it's about equal numbers of people who have not read any of them, with a few people who are like, if someone gives me a free one, I'll read it, but I don't have any subscriptions. The most popular was certainly Spielbox, which
Right.
isn't surprising. Spielbox is kind of the industry standard. Um, so a lot of really great answers here. Eric Longenbach, one of our
Mm-hmm.
best listeners, is every now and then I'll grab a copy of Tabletop Gaming, but it's been a couple years now. One of those things that I grab when I know I'll be somewhere and reading something and will be a good way to spend the time. Uh, it happens a lot more. I'll grab Wargamers Illustrated, which I've seen once or twice, but Wargames Soldier and Strategy, or White Dwarf for miniature gaming, or
Wow. Yeah.
Fenrix for RPG. I found this really interesting because all of a sudden it opened up. Oh yeah, White Dwarf. White
Remember
Dwarf and
that?
Dragon magazine were the two
Yeah.
competing RPG magazines, and they did kind of venture into board gaming, even to the point where Dragon magazine had some board games in the magazine. There'd be like an article that was, here's how to play this new board game. And some of those have actually been published later as published hobby board games. So yeah, thanks for bringing up White Dwarf and Dragon in the answers. It just brought back so much nostalgia.
Peter Harrelson says, no, I don't, but I hardly read any print magazines anymore and less on the screen. Evan Halbert says, nope, but I listen to this podcast. Thank you, Evan, of
There
course.
were a lot of comments about watching three old people talk about it, so I don't need the magazine, which I feel this. I do feel this. Uh, Peter Van der Meeren had I have a lifetime subscription to Casual Game Insider.
Do you know that
I
one?
I had it. Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
subscription for several
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
Read 2 issues of Moloch Monthly,
Oh, that's
shout out there.
Ignacie's. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have a subscription to Spiel, Dutch magazine about games issued by Ducosim, which I don't know this one. It's a physical copy. Ducosim is a nonprofit organization whose goal it is to promote board games and the hobby in the Netherlands, that's fantastic. I got to look this one up.
I gotta say, it was about my eyeballing this is like 2/3. Nope, don't do it. 1/3, I do, and I'm trying to figure out. It does appear that it is more Europeans that read the magazines, but not. But there are Americans saying
Yeah.
that they
I think
do
it's
as
a
well.
byproduct of Spielbox being a German publication.
Mhm.
Um, I have a subscription to Spielbox. I think it's great. I like that magazine quite a lot.
Very cool.
Agreed. For an American, it's an expensive subscription,
Right.
but it does come with promos and cards and bits and bobs, and
Right.
that just always makes me happy.
Right. Right. So, using what we talked about with Hasbro's now dabbling or in experimenting was the word they used in AI in their big products of D&D and Magic the Gathering, I am asking this question to our readers.
Ooh.
With all the talk of AI art or AI images and or the ethical, moral implications around that, let's chat on a related but different topic, AI usage in tabletop games. And my question, or questions, I should probably say, I'm actually putting it almost ready right here into the guild as we speak. The questions are, in coming years, let's say within 5 or so, how can you envision AI being used in tabletop gaming? The uses of AI will likely be different based on the type of tabletop game, so you can talk about it as we did on this episode with regard to the uses in board games, card games, role-playing games, etc. For what purpose can you envision AI will be used in these games? Does it bother you in some way that AI will enter the tabletop gaming space? So I think we've almost answered this question already, Corey, but is there anything else
Well,
that you can go ahead?
let's tighten it up and
Yeah.
say let's not go into art. Let's talk about every aspect of tabletop games
Well, that's what I did. I
because
said
we've discussed art so much.
right, right. I'm removing art, and of course, my mother's phone is now ringing during the thing, so I can't stop this because she has to go pick it up over there. So I apologize for the ringing sound that
It
you're
adds
now
a
hearing.
humanity to the
It,
podcast.
because my mother has a
Stephen
landline.
is Stephen is literally a gamer geek in the basement at his mother's house right now. So I want your mom to come out and offer you cookies. That would be amazing.
That would be pretty fun if she did. So yes, we'll remove from this. In fact, I'm typing this right now.
There you go.
Remove the
You're not good at
concepts.
succinct. That is not in your skill set, sir.
Remove the concepts of AI in artwork from this discussion. I'm
There you go.
putting that right in discussion. So
And
I'm
it's
putting
not
that.
that we don't think art is a really important discussion to
Oh,
have, but we have talked about that recently and a lot. So
right.
I'm personally curious about AI in design, in story, in opponents, in gameplay, in mechanism, and in the other aspects.
Right, exactly. So, everybody out there, what would you say about this? Please go right now to our guild after you finish listening
This very second.
and answer
We'll
our
wait.
question to you. I just posted it. And now, in the meantime, let's go to final scoring. Thank you so much for listening and help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts or watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. If you want to be part of this podcast, you can just ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment by posting them in the correct thread in our guild on Board Game Geek, and also answer our question to you from our playtesting segment by going to our guild on Board Game Gate and looking for the thread with this episode's question. Check out the websites portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, and dicetowerdish.com, and play2zgames.com. We're all over social media, so please interact with us on Facebook. Please like our pages, which are /BoardGamesInsider, /PortalGamesUS, and /PodfatherGaming, and /Play2ZGames. And speak directly to Ignacy, Corey, and Steven on Twitter, X, Instagram, at Portal Games US, at Podfather Gaming, at Dice Tower Dish, and the very active YouTube channels are Portal Game Studio, the Podfather of Gaming, and Above Board TV. On TikTok, Ignacy is Portal Games US. Come see us at a convention in 2024, and if you find us there, come up, talk to us. We really live for that.
Absolutely. And we're both going to be in upstate New York. Unfortunately, it is a private invite only convention, so we can't invite you into that convention. But drop us a line. We'll see if we can, come say hello.
That's right. Board Games Insider, professionally edited by Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine Podcast. If you want your podcast edited by Joshua, you can reach him on tabletopsubmarine@gmail.com. And that great voice you hear doing the intro, the outro, all those in between segments is that of Ray Greenlee, who can be contacted to do your voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. Do you have anything else to tell our audience?
Cool. I'm just super excited about the gathering. It's my very favorite convention of the year. It just has such a neat feel, and it's friends that I never get to see otherwise. It's I can't wait.
It is a great time, and that's kind of cool that you mentioned that. It's not only you're seeing friends, you're seeing people who always have to work at these conventions, and you don't get to see them. But now, well, people have lots of meetings, they do a lot of business at the gathering, but you really end up playing their prototypes, stuff that are coming out later this year, talking to them about business, and just chilling and hanging out and having a good time, going to get a adult beverage with them and stuff like that. It's a great time. So
I've never pretended to be an adult.
No, that's true, but you do drink beverages. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you later, everyone.
Bye.